Hello, everybody, and welcome to MangaPod. We're a weekly podcast in which we all get together after we read all or part of a manga, and then we discuss it with friendship, love, and lots of spoilers. This week we are talking Fullmetal Alchemist, volumes 1 through 4, chapters 1 through 16. I am Erin of Happily Erin, your host, and with me is one of my lovely co-hosts, as well as a very special guest. So we'll have Dodger introduce herself, and then our guests introduce themselves as well.
Hello, I'm Dodger. And I love Fullmetal Alchemist, so I'm very excited to talk about it. I'm sad Lou isn't here to partake, but that's okay, because we do have a lovely guest to join us, so it's fine.
Lou is just moved and thus having the standard internet issues that come along with moving into a new place. So we miss him a lot, but he said he should be back next week. So. Yeah. Under the scope, Jack, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you guys for having me on. So my name's Jack. I run an anime YouTube channel called Under the Scope, where I make like video essays and analytical stuff about the shows and whatnot that I love. And you can also follow me on Twitter at JackUTS. So happy to talk about Fullmetal Alchemist, one of my favorites.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. We're so excited to have you. If you guys have never joined us for a MangaPod before, what we like to do is give you a short description of your manga that we read, and then our spoiler-free recommendations, whether we think you should spend time going to read this manga or not. That way, if it sounds like something you're interested in, you can take your leave once we get to spoiler section so you won't be spoiled. We do ask that nobody post any spoils in this comments until we get to a spoiler section. And once we're there, please don't post anything past chapter 16. I know that Fullmetal Alchemist is a very, very popular series, both anime and manga-wise. But there's still, new people always coming in who may not have seen it. And a lot happens in the first chunk of Fullmetal Alchemist. If you're familiar with the series, you're well aware. So please do not post any spoilers for anything until we get to spoiler section once we do after chapter 16. Once we get into spoiler section, we'll kind of tell you guys where we ended so that if you have stuff you want to talk about, you kind of know where the ending that we had.
There is kind of one thing that happened that's pretty clear mark off where we left.
Yeah. Exactly. You'll know. All right, Jack, if you don't mind reading that description for us.
Sure. Edward Elric, a young, brilliant alchemist, has lost much in his 12-year life. When he and his brother Alphonse try to resurrect their dead mother through the forbidden act of human transmutation, Edward loses his brother as well as 2 of his limbs. With his supreme alchemy skills, Edward binds Alphonse's soul to a large suit of armor. A year later, Edward, now promoted to the Fullmetal Alchemist of the state, embarks on a journey with his younger brother to obtain the Philosopher's Stone. The fabled mythical object is rumored to be capable of amplifying an alchemist's ability by leaps and bounds, thus allowing them to override the fundamental laws of alchemy. To gain something, an alchemist must sacrifice something of equal value. Edward hopes to draw into the military's resources to find the fabled stone and restore his and Alphonse's bodies to normal. However, the Elric brothers soon discover that there is more to the legendary stone than meets the eye, as they are led to the epicenter of a far darker battle than they could have ever imagined.
Perfect. Thank you.
The plot thickens.
Awesome. Spoiler-free recommendations. Would anyone like to go first? Dodger, do you want to go first?
Sure.
I know what yours is going to be already.
Sure, I would love to go first. Fullmetal Alchemist is a wonderful blessing upon the world of manga. I love it, and I think whenever people say that they haven't read it or haven't watched Brotherhood, I evangelize really, really hard for it. I think that it's fantastic and definitely worth a read. Arakawa just crafts this whole story so well, and the longer you read, the more you're like, oh my god, how deep does this shit go, right? It's fantastic, so I definitely recommend it.
Yeah.
Agreed. I actually have not read the manga before. I've watched the 2003 anime, and I've watched Brotherhood several times. Brotherhood was actually the first anime series that I ever watched.
What? That's incredible.
Yeah. So Fullmetal Alchemist holds a very nostalgic place in my heart. And for a long time, I considered it my number one favorite. And while it may not exactly be that top spot for me now. It's still one of my all-time favorites. So I was super excited to actually sit down and read the manga, because I've been meaning to do that for forever. But yeah, basically it's just more FMA goodness. I mean, what else can you say? I think that this series in general is has some of the most universal appeal of anything in manga or anime. And for that reason, it's kind of like that series that you can recommend to just about anybody and feel like they're going to get on board.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I also love Fullmetal Alchemist. I've been reading it when it was first coming out. We were reading the horrible scanlations of it way back when. But I have loved Fullmetal Alchemist for a very long time, both the manga and the anime series. And I agree that it is one that if somebody is saying they're wanting to get into anime or manga, Fullmetal Alchemist is the one I always point them to. It's just so much about it appeals to so many different people, and it's such a concise, thought-out story with such great characters and development that it really shows how the medium can be utilized, both manga and anime, how the medium can be utilized to tell a fantastic story. And so I think it's one that I always push to and recommend. And I just love it. And I love it every single time I go and read it or watch it, even though I know what's going to be happening. I still just get so engaged into it because the writing and the characters are just that phenomenal. So I definitely recommend it if it is one that somebody hasn't checked out before. So there you go. We all highly recommend Fullmetal Alchemist if it is a series you have not read or seen before. We're going to be jumping into spoiler section now, so now's the time to take your leave if you don't want to be spoiled. We all recommend that you don't be spoiled on it because there's some really great stuff that's just
too good.
Part of the experience of Fullmetal Alchemist is experiencing these things. So if you don't want to be spoiled, now will be the time to take your leave. You can come back and watch a lot of this later on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/happilyerin. Once again, as we go into this, I want to remind you guys, if you're just now joining us, that we are asking nobody to post any spoilers once we get into spoiler section for anything past chapter 16, and we'll give you a very clear, distinct marker about where we read
that is. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Ready?
Yes.
Let's do it.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Boop.
Arakawa is God.
Arakawa is God.
Poor Hughes.
God of mine.
Yeah, so we ended when Hughes died.
Yeah. So spoiler. Yes, so that is the last
My boy.
Which is just so crazy to me because I think I'm the one who went in and was like, oh yeah, this is the stopping point. It's only 16 chapters in, but it's a great stopping point. But I was just still it's only 16 chapters in. It feels like so much happens in only 16 chapters.
Yeah. No, I felt the same way. And I don't know if it's because when I was reading it initially, it wasn't all slammed together. I wasn't able to read it all in one chunk.
Yeah.
But yeah, in my memory, for some reason, I definitely thought that Nina happened later. I definitely thought that Hughes happened later. But you're right. Looking at how many chapters there are, it's no, this story just happens rapidly. This shit escalates really fast.
There's
just
crazy. So much material.
Yeah.
So, and then you go in and you realize that it's only, we were talking about, it's barely over 100 chapters long total. And the series ran for 9 years? 10
yeah.
years?
Was there a big hiatus in there? Or no?
I feel like there might have been. I don't know. And the chapters are longer too. They're usually about 45 to 50 some pages.
Yeah, that's true.
So we're getting longer chapters, but even so, to get that much, 16 chapters in and to have gotten as much character development and plot development and having it be so coherent and not feeling rushed at all is just so impressive to
yeah.
get.
And I think part of the reason it feels some of those events are later is just because it's such a quick read. It's one of the most bingeable reads in any manga I've read.
Yeah.
Just tear through it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. It's a really quick one to like get into and to finish too.
Is because that plot is just so engaging and you're so attached to all of the characters.
Yeah. So usually what we like to do, the question we ask is at the start of this, what were you expecting before reading this manga? Since we've all kind of experienced it before in many different ways.
Yeah.
Do you guys remember like your first time experiencing Full Metal? Like ever, not just like reading this time, but like when you were younger, or like Jack, you were saying, I don't know when you watched it, but it was your first experience with an anime, right?
Right, yeah. So I had watched, before Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, I had watched like some Ghibli stuff and, I mean, way back in the day, like Dragon Ball and Pokemon.
Sorry. Watson's eyes were just glowing so intently as she just like stared into the camera, and it always freaked me out for a second. Go on. I'm so sorry.
You're fine. But yeah, so Fullmetal Alchemist was like the first series that I think I watched that I like really like recognized as anime. And I specifically remember being absolutely enthralled from the start. And my sister was the one who was showing it to me, and she had it on DVD. And I was like visiting her because she was off in college, and this was back when I was in high school. And I was visiting her at college, and she showed me like the first like handful of episodes. But then I had to leave, and I had no way to watch it myself. And so I was thinking like, well, like I thought I was just gonna have to wait until like I saw her again, but then I realized that all of the episodes were on Funimation's YouTube page. And so I had watched like the first 8 or so episodes in the dub, but then the rest I just all watched subbed on YouTube. And I think I got through 64 episodes in like a week because this was summer and I had nothing else to do, and it was amazing.
Awesome.
So good. Yeah, I watched the original anime, and that made me start reading the manga. And then I think at the same time as the manga was ending was when Brotherhood was like a few episodes in, like they overlapped a bit.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and I remember being like, no, I gotta just stick with the manga, and then I'll go watch Brotherhood. Yeah, and I just remember so vividly thinking to myself, holy shit, the manga is so much better than the first anime. Like, I remember being overwhelmed by that feeling.
Yeah.
Just like, oh my God, why didn't they just wait until the manga was done? Yeah. But yeah,
I know there's some people who would stand the 2003
For
anime
sure.
pretty hard, but
for sure.
Yeah.
I will say I am definitely a manga and Brotherhood person. I lie on that side of the fence firmly.
Yeah. My first experience was like, I think I started watching the 2003 anime first because LiveJournal, there was stuff about it on LiveJournal all over the place. So that got me into it. And then I did the same thing where I went to the manga too. And then like after I took kind of like a hiatus off of reading anime and manga for a few years, I went back and like read it and then watched Brotherhood too. So just it's so crazy that it only came out in like 2000, the early 2000s. It feels so classic.
It does.
Yeah.
It really does.
When I think about it, I'm just like, how did it? Yeah, it just feels so much older, but timeless at the same time.
And then it didn't end until like 2010.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was still in college when it ended. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. I would have just moved out to LA, I think.
Aw, guys.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, that's so bizarre.
So we got through a good chunk of plot and story that happened. So let's talk about your guys' thoughts about, let's just do characters. Let's just jump into that. The Elric brothers, Ed and Al. What are your guys' feelings on them as characters and their story so far?
Ed and Al.
Yeah.
They're sweet boys, and I love them.
Must protect.
I think that Alphonse is such a like beautifully tragic character. Like the idea of this like really young child that is in the position that he's in. And we even read like the whole situation with him questioning whether or not he was ever real. Like he's just so heartbreaking, and he's heartbreaking not only from his perspective but also from Ed's perspective, because Ed like absolutely feels responsible for everything. And it's I love stories that sort of follow like family dynamics. And I think that and like having a story that follows like them as brothers, having done this, like by all accounts, as far as everyone else in this universe is concerned, like a completely heinous act, right? It's just so good. Like you just want like you feel for them so much, and you want so badly for them to be happy. And that's like through the entire story, you're just like, please just be happy, please. Like,
yes. And like going off of that too, with their whole goal being the fact that they want to return, like get their bodies back. I love that in the like first chapter, they acknowledge the fact that people are going to be like, oh, you're doing this because you want to bring your mom back, obviously.
Right.
And I love the fact that it's like, no, that is 100%. They're never going to be thinking about doing that again.
Ever again. Yeah.
They're just trying to get their bodies back. Yeah.
Yeah. Which when usually you see a lot of people like Rose, where it's like somebody died that's important to me, I want to bring them back. And that could be the driving force. Like that could have easily been the driving force for them again, because it's like they still want to bring their mom back. But the fact that it has their motivation being getting their original bodies back being what moves them forward is so much more interesting.
And I think like really driving home that what they saw, like what they experienced on that day was so harrowing that they are well aware on the other side of it that it's not something anyone should ever try and do. You know, that like they really learned something from it.
Yeah. I mean, one of the biggest themes of Fullmetal Alchemist is, you know, humans who dare to play God. And I mean, that comes down to, I mean, that is the antagonist for you, who we haven't exactly been introduced yet to in these 16 chapters. But it's even right down there in the very beginning with, you know, that's the initial mistake that Ed and Al made, was that they tried to play God, and, you know, they live with the consequences of that, and, you know, understand the weight of what they did. And rather than trying to, you know, fix their mistakes, you know, find the, you know, missing piece, they're just trying to undo the suffering that they brought onto each other.
Yeah.
And even though we got like a time skip beyond like the day, I like that they're still young enough that a lot of the other characters can almost like a lot of characters kind of feel responsible for them. And I think that it creates like some really interesting character development that happens with people like Roy, who's just like a dick, but like he really does like care, you know? And having a character like Winry too, who's like always known them. I think that there's just some really smart stuff that gets developed in terms of like who the characters are and how they interact with each other, and like what their purpose is to the story. There's no character that feels superfluous ever. It's just so well.
That's one of the coolest things about the series, is just how rich the cast is. I mean, even in just these chapters, like we still probably haven't even been introduced to, you know, a third of all the characters that are in it. But, you know, even just this, between Armstrong and, you know, Scar and all these characters, you have so many unique, interesting personalities that makes it a lot of fun at times, but also just gives it that like really rich story.
Yeah. I love that something that Arcana does really well is having the characters influence each other so richly too. And so just seeing the dynamic of Ed and Al, and still being reminded that they're like young, like they're young. And that's not like beaten into us. It's because of how the other characters around them treat them and are towards them. And so it's just kind of like a reminder of, wow, these are kids. So when they do certain stupid things, it makes a lot of sense why they're doing it. Because they're kids, and when you're that young and you have that motivation, it's like you don't think about the consequences all the time, which is why they'll sneak out and go and find the fifth laboratory.
Yeah.
Definitely told not to. That sort of a thing.
Yeah, she does not let you forget that these are kids that we're talking about. And I mean, it's because they're kids that they got into this mess in the first place. They made a childish mistake. And throughout all the, like you said, all the characters, they almost have this like paternal sense with them.
Yeah, well, a lot of the sort of military characters found them directly after this had all happened, right? And so I think there's also some history there that sometimes, at least when I'm reading, sometimes I forget like that a lot of these characters have watched them grow for the last couple of years. So yeah, it makes sense that there's kind of like a, please don't do anything dumb. we care about you, please. I know that you're like hot shit, but like, can you please just like chill out? The other character that I had kind of forgotten how we were introduced to was Scar.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, I loved Scar when I was younger. I don't know why.
Me too. I thought Scar was like the
Scar
coolest dude in the world.
I still love him and think he's so awesome, but man, 14-year-old me was like, Scar's the best.
Scar's bae.
Yeah, his intro, I forgot how quick it is in the manga. It's like, he's there. And he's also introduced, we actually had someone in the chat earlier, I missed the name, bring up like whether Fullmetal Alchemist is considered a shonen or not. And I have always kind of felt that it is. It's not like a standard what people think of when they think of shonen, but I think it has a lot of the same tropes in there in terms of storytelling and characters and such. And a lot of times in shonen, Scar is presented how a lot of the villains in other typical shonen are introduced. That it's just like you have a few chapters or like a very few quick arcs, and then all of a sudden there's this mysterious figure, and that's the villain. And you're like, oh, that's the guy that they're going to be fighting against for however long now. You get one fight with him, and then he's like not involved with them at all. And so there's a lot of times where Arakawa does a lot, like, plays with those shonen tropes in terms of like the pacing and how you're expecting things to play out with certain characters or the villain, antagonists, and such like that, and plays. You're just like completely caught off guard. It just feels so organic and part of the story, and so you're just taken along with it. And so I remember when I first got introduced to him, I was expecting him to like be way more prevalent, especially in the first few like little arcs that we got. But he doesn't like fall away. He just gets busy doing other stuff.
He's dying. He's got other things going on.
I'm definitely a sucker for the villains turned friends character archetype. So that's one of my biggest things I love about Scar. But he's kind of like introduced to us as just this mysterious other who shows up and is clearly evil, blah blah blah. But then like once in like later chapters that we haven't gotten to here, you start to fill in his backstory and like see some of his motivation. Then he becomes this like really rich character that I think everyone ends up getting behind.
Yeah, he's great. They're all great. I think you're right too, Erin, that it's really evidence that because Arakawa has always said that like she had the entire story planned from the get-go. Like she knew everything that was going to happen in this manga from start to finish, and it had like a clear end, and that's where it ended, you know. And I think that the way that the tropes are played with and the way that the characters feel so organic is probably because of that, right? Like there was never like a last minute like, oh well, I guess this character is going to do this now because why not, you know? It all had so much meticulous planning to it that I think helped a lot with character development.
Yeah, chat is like, spoilers, watch out. We're trying. Thank you guys.
There's a lot of tiptoeing going on here.
Thank you guys. Yeah, we're tiptoeing on it.
Thank
They're
you.
keeping us in check.
One day we became the rotten bacon butts.
Our own villains.
We are the villains.
So we can talk more. I kind of want, before I forget it. So something about like, you always forget this after you've experienced Nina and Hughes for the first time. You never, at least for most people I've talked to, you never forget about those two moments. Like those are two very defining moments of the series. But it's so crazy to think that there are people who like haven't experienced those, and I don't know if it's like because the series is so widespread and so many people know about it, but there's still a lot of people who are just getting into it, that it's just like you always want to know what people's reactions are going to be to those two moments. And even like going back and reading them, they're always so hard to read and so affecting. And so that's just something that like when you're wanting to tell a story, I think that's a testament to being a good storyteller, where you have those two moments that were very key to the, not just the plot, but also character development for certain characters, and didn't feel cheap or unnecessary, which can be very hard to do with death, especially the death of a child. Like it could so easily be played with just to get sympathy out of the reader, and the fact that it's not makes the world seem that much heavier and that much sicker too, because you're aware of what alchemy means to certain people, and like setting up the tone for the entire like antagonist side of an immoral side of it too.
And also what Jack was saying about there being a theme of like playing God, right? Like all of these moments that we see that go awry with characters who do something that they think is like their right, or you know is like a necessary thing to try and do, and it never goes well ever. You know, and I think like there are moments like that don't feel like they were meant to shock you. It feels like it's just reinforcing this idea of like, no, you shouldn't have done that. Like what? You know, because you were like, man, to experience that again, right? Or like, oh, it's crazy that some people don't know about Nina. I recently saw a line of tweets from somebody who was watching that shit for the first time, and it was straight up like, I don't know how I feel about this dude. Is he gonna wind up being evil? Oh, well, he's a good dad, so I'm probably wrong, with like a screenshot, right? It was like, oh, I'm probably wrong about this guy. He's really sweet to his daughter, so you know what? I'm probably just like falling for the red herring. He seems like a cool dude. I retract my statement. And then the next 3 tweets were like, oh no, fuck, no, are you kidding me? It's just like, oh my God. Like, the roller coaster that we've all been through.
I'm always struck by how quickly it happens too.
Right?
Like, 1 second they are playing with the dog and it's all happy fun times, and then not 30 seconds later it is the most darkest shit imaginable.
Yes. And you a lot of people I think don't even realize the line, like, it's a terrible day for rain.
That's
like
from...
I see that line everywhere.
Me
like
too.
all the time. And people have no idea. And that's one of those that they see it a lot, and then they watch the show and they're like, that's what
it's from.
was referring to, and it just like kills them even more. Oh man, Hugh's funeral.
Yeah, Hughes' funeral is always the one that gets me. Yeah. More so even than Hughes' the actual death scene or even the Nina scene. That's just like, I'm numb whenever I read or watch that. It's like, But Hughes' funeral,
I agree. His funeral
when
makes
his daughter is like crying. It's like, oh no, I can't do it.
Every time, and it's not like if you go and read, like when we were rereading it, I noted that like that funeral scene is very fast. It's only like 5 pages long, if that. But it's just so effective with like the daughter and Roy, and just knowing who Roy is, that we've seen of him so far, and how he like takes in.
He's just like a goofy hard ass.
Yeah, and having it be where it's not raining, like as so easily is used so many times somebody dies or there's a funeral. The fact that that's another playing with the trope where it's not actually raining, but it's a character who like would be useless in the rain, and now here he is like saying that line. It makes it even more heartbreaking. I hate.
Yeah.
Ugh. And it's also like another part of like Hugh's death is the fact that he gets so close.
Yeah.
So
like
close.
I mean, he basically finds the answer.
Yeah, he's like the one that gets that close to having that answer, and it's just always so painful when you have a character who knows something and could change the course of everything.
God,
having that like happen, is just so
fucking envy.
Fucking envy.
Piece of shit.
What do you guys think about the homunculi that we got? By the way, Jack, I didn't tell you this, Dodger's a refresher too. We do have the spoiler finger we can utilize. If there is a spoiler that you would like to say, you hold up the finger.
Jack can't hold up a finger though.
Oh, that's true.
I can just say
finger.
One of us can spoiler finger it.
Okay.
But avoid unless necessary.
Unless necessary. Just wanted to bring it up. So, yeah. What are you gonna say?
One thing I want to say about Hughes' death scene is that it's interesting because it might only be like a couple scenes before that when they're all in the hospital and King Bradley visits, and like he tells them all that like they need to not trust anybody, and like this could sink through all levels of the military. And so then flash forward, a couple scenes, and Hughes is gonna call them on the military phone or whatever, and then he like looks over at the secretary at the desk and then hangs up the phone, and that's why he goes out to the private line or whatever. And it's just like that, the unintended consequences there.
Yeah.
I always forget how quick Bradley's intro is in the manga. Like he's just like suddenly there.
Yeah, I have to admit I was a little like startled by that.
Yeah, it's always so startling to me how fast he appears.
Especially given his appearance in the first episode of Brotherhood, which like kind of shows their hand a little bit.
Yeah, Brotherhood did a different, like an interesting pacing.
For sure. And I don't know if looking back on it, I don't know if I exactly like that more or not. Like the anime original episode that starts Brotherhood, I think I like, but I do prefer starting with the story in Lior. I don't think it's any coincidence that Arakawa started her story with a chapter about a false priest who is supposedly the voice of God, and it's like, there you go.
100%, yeah.
So I definitely do think that that's the best place to start this story. But at the same time, the flip side of that is then Bradley doesn't come in until a little bit later on. It's just like, okay, there he is.
It's like, who are you? Oh, okay, this is who you are. You're important. Everyone's freaking out.
Yeah, everybody really cares.
Yeah.
His first scene is so weird too, because he's like, one panel he's like happy, smiling, he's cheery, and the next panel he's like uber serious and got this great look.
Yeah. And his like importance just it takes a little bit to catch up to like why he's so important too, and why what he's saying has so much weight. Just because like we weren't super introduced to who he was beforehand, about like this is how powerful and like who he is in terms of like, where he is in the military and why they respect him so much. And so I think it would have had a little bit more weight if he'd been foreshadowed just a tiny bit more. And I can't remember if he was or not, but it definitely didn't feel like he had.
Yeah.
He had been.
He might have had like a tiny appearance before then, but I'm pretty sure that was like his first speaking part.
Yeah.
To answer your question, my favorite homunculus has not shown up yet.
Mine neither.
So.
But what do you think about the ones that we've got? Because we've got Lust.
We've got 3, right?
Yeah, Lust, Envy, and
Gluttony. Yeah, Gluttony always freaked me the fuck out.
Yeah.
Gluttony always made me feel really weird. Just like, oh, I guess you can eat those people. Like, it's just, I don't know why.
Yeah.
But.
Doesn't. Can we, can I do a spoiler finger? Just because I really want to know.
Sure. Spoiler finger, mute if you don't want spoilers about Full Metal.
5, I'll count to 5. 1, 2, hi, Watson. 3,
4, 5.
Okay, who's your favorite homunculi?
Greed.
Greed, okay.
Obviously.
It has to be Greed.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I thought and I assumed, because obviously mine too.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to make sure, just so we could put it out there.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I was really sad that we haven't gotten to him.
I know.
Yet.
Soon.
I wanted him.
With the speed of this manga. Soon.
All right, I'll unspoiler finger now.
Unmute. Oh, you're muted. Never mind. Hopefully you've seen that we've put our fingers down.
Or here.
If they're still muted, they're going to be very confused.
Well, in the past, so there's been an episode, maybe like 2 episodes before, where I've shown up to a MangaPod and thought that I did all of the reading, but I didn't. And so I'll like take the headphones off while they're talking about stuff that I don't know, and then everybody's like, it's just like trying to mime for me to put my headphones back on.
Tower of God. I remember there was a Tower of God.
There was a Tower of God.
That was not your fault at all. It was just the way that, because like Tower of God set up so wacky, all crazy.
I need to just
so all of us
reread
like,
Tower of God from the very beginning. I think yeah, because
now
now
I manhwa kick, so
yeah, right. Like that's pretty much all I do right now is just read manhwa. So
yeah. So we have and we haven't even seen that much of them, and it was kind of another like it was Scar like the bait and switch, having like Lust, Gluttony, and Envy are the kind of main focus antagonists, and so having them come in too, and having them very early on establish that Scar is not with them, and that he's enough of, because they've talked about the special sacrifices, and it's like there's so many people who have alchemy that there's the homunculi find important and don't want to kill. So then it's the fact that like Scar is using something that is like alchemy, like he's got alchemy going on with him too. So why is he so different? Why is he considered a threat that they want to dispose of instead of like keeping around to do whatever it is they're gonna do?
Yeah, he has when he first shows up, he has a feel that I guess is, well, no spoilers. He has a feel of like kind of an odd vigilante, and you're not sure like where it's coming from. Like you just don't have enough information about him yet. But I think that Arakawa does a good job of making him intriguing from the get-go. So
yeah. Oh.
Children?
Everything okay?
Kitters?
Should we talk about art? Let's talk about the art.
Sure, yeah.
Sure.
Like, so yes, go ahead. No, you.
Can I be honest? I don't like Arakawa's art like a ton.
I was gonna say that this is probably my like least favorite aspect, and I say that relatively speaking, because everything else is so great.
Everyone's faces are like they're like boxes.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone's got real bulgy faces.
Yeah, it's
very
it's
wide.
it's not that the art is bad. It's super clear. It's really easy to tell what's going on. And I like the designs of some characters. It's just in general, like for some reason, the way that she does faces is just not my favorite.
It's very simplistic too. It's not like everything, like you said, is very clean. And it's a very distinct style. Like when you see Arakawa's art, you're like, hey, I know who did this. Like Silver Spoon is the same way. Like
sure.
Silver Spoon, and you're like, hey, I know who the creator of that is. But yeah, I agree. Everybody's like facial features are kind of, aside from like a few random characters, everyone kind of has the same box face going on. And she does a nice job about giving characters like distinct, like little things so you can tell who is who.
Definitely.
But yeah, I definitely agree that Citrine faces are extra thick.
Faces are extra thick.
Very good description. And and I think another thing that like I think that anime does them really well, and like it comes across in the manga too, but the fight scenes I think you can definitely tell aren't like, they're necessary for the story. And you can tell what's going on, but they're not necessarily super exciting. And so
they're like, very to the point.
Yeah, they're very to the point. They're never drawn out, which is totally fine, and it works. But it's definitely like one of the weaker parts of like, if you're going in for the action side of it, it's like, she definitely, I think, was like, all right, I want to do an action shonen, like adventure, fantasy, but I'm not the strongest at fighting, so I'll have it. But I'm going to do the minimal, like, with it.
Yeah.
And so, but, like, the fight scenes are pretty clean, but there's just no real variation or excitement when it comes to, like, how the characters are fighting or the choreography or anything.
And I think especially, too, especially if you're coming from the Brotherhood anime, which had, like, some of the best action animators in the industry work on it, and those fight scenes are amazing. That can be a little bit of a disappointment coming over to the manga, but there's no lack of clarity here. I mean, like some of the designs and stuff and the style is a little plain, but you can tell all the characters apart. Like they all have, like you said, they all have unique features and stuff where you're never confused at who's actually talking. I think probably, the other thing with it too is that I don't feel like the art itself gives me the best sense of the world. And I think a lot of that comes from a little bit of a lack of detail. And sometimes maybe like a little too close up with the characters where you're not necessarily like getting the background and like getting a sense of the environment and the place.
Before Fullmetal, she had pretty much only done one-shots. Is that
right?
She'd
never done a full-length series.
Yeah, this was like her first like big thing, and I think that's like kind of obvious at times.
Especially in the early.
Yeah, but where it excels is definitely just in the detail of the story.
Right.
And the art, I think, complements that. She does mechanical stuff really, really well, and there's a lot of machinery in this manga. So honestly, like it's not bad. It's just like it can be weak at points, but it's consistent and it's clean and it's clear. So I can't really complain,
I would describe it, it's not bad, but it's serviceable. And when you have a story like Fullmetal, serviceable does the trick.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see. Is there anything else you guys like want to bring up? We're coming up on about 45 minutes. Is there anything else you want to touch on before we do?
Can I just say that Hawkeye is the best?
Yeah, we can Hawkeye. Dude, when she kicks Roy in the rain, it's still one of the best scenes. It's just such a good scene.
So good.
She's just like, dude, you're useless. What are you doing?
She's great. I love her.
I do love another part of Full Metal Alchemist, like the humor in the series, like can be really good at times and then kind of repetitive other times.
Yeah, it's a little one note sometimes.
But in the like one shots that come after the omakes, and those are like in the really short chapters, those are when it like really shines. And I think that's because she's like, hey, I can just go real weird with these here.
Totally. Yeah, I think you're right. When it's not like trying to fit comedy in between like serious shit, and it's just like, no, this is just goof. This is just a goof.
Yeah.
It's great. And I was thinking, oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, I know there's one in particular where like she specifically says that she made Pinaco's, I think that's her name, right? Granny's.
Oh,
I think her name is Pinaco. Yeah. Yeah, they made her. She chose her hairstyle specifically so that she could have this gag about it having natto in it.
Yeah.
And like the I think like the title of that like little gag itself is just like this is actually why I chose this design.
Yes. And there's some really great ones with Ed and Al and like Al being a suit of armor. Like they really play. She plays with that in a way that she's like, I can't do this in the series because it'll mess stuff up. But I love that at the end of the volume, we always get, or sometimes at the end of chapters, we get like whatever character died with just like little wings and looking so happy.
It's like, aw, there he is.
And then another thing I was thinking about when I brought that up was Hawkeye and her dog.
Yes, I was mentioned that.
So cute.
She's really the one that gets to raise him, like he'll be perfect, and then he pees inside, and her way of training him is just fucking shooting.
Yeah. And the dog's like up against the wall.
Oh man. Yeah, we haven't gotten to see too much from Roy's team yet in these early. He's definitely like we've seen Roy and we've seen a few bits of Hawkeye, and so it's definitely like building up there too. We haven't.
Yeah, we've gotten a little sense for their dynamic, but no, there's a lot more to it yet that we still have to get to.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to think. We've done a pretty general overview, so if anybody has anything else, otherwise we can move on to final thoughts and ratings.
I think we've done a pretty good job of not spoiling everything.
I know.
A pretty good job. Yeah, there were a couple moments where I was like,
we have towed the line for sure.
Yeah. But yeah.
Great. All right, so we do final thoughts and ratings.
Yeah.
You like to go first? Usually when we do rating for a series that most of us have read or anything, we rate just the section.
We try to only rate what we read.
Yeah. It's gonna be a little hard, but
so, which I think it's very difficult with a series like this to do that. But
I think that one of the things that as I was reading this, I was like trying to put myself into the shoes of someone who's never experienced this story before.
Yeah.
And so just looking at this from an introductory standpoint, I think it does a great job of introducing you to, the main players here. A lot of the themes that are gonna come up again and again, like the biggest one we talked about playing God, but then also you get a real sense of Ed and Al's bond in these chapters. Our boy definitely goes through a little bit of an existential crisis there at one point.
Understandably.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if I was a husk of armor, then I might feel the same. But
that you were put in at like 11 years old.
Yeah, exactly. But just and I think that one scene that really always sticks out to me is just one of like the most emotional moments that just kind of sneaks up on you is during that little arc where where Winry then yells at Al after, he drives Ed off. And you get that little flashback where like Ed is lying in bed, like in pain. And he's just like muttering to Winry and Granny about like, the weight of guilt that's on him for what happened. And just like, that really hits me. And I think that gives you so much, fills their relationship so well. But yeah, between their relationship, some of the themes, and even some of the early antagonists, like a few of the homunculi, I think that you get a really good sense of what this story is all about, while there's just still so much to go. So much fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that, in general, like I said at the beginning, that Fullmetal Alchemist is one of those works with universal appeal, and represents everything that I come to, and I think a lot of people come to from this medium.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. If you want.
Oh, you're good. No.
Okay. I was gonna say, I think for my rating, there's a reason that this series is so highly recommended to people coming in to anime, and not just because it's so wildly appealing to so many different people, but also because the start of it is very, very strong. I think it's between probably a solid 7.5 to an 8. Like, it's just a very strong sense setting up the themes that are going to happen later on. So you get an idea for the themes. You have a very clear idea and understanding about the characters' motivations and who the antagonists. Like, you're starting to see these antagonists come in, and you're getting answers, but questions and answers all over the place. But it's not so much that you're just muddled down and don't understand what's going on. And it's such a clear narrative from the start that it is very easy to follow and able to get into very quickly, with great cast of characters, and just I think it's something that makes the first half of a very, very strong series still. I'm not the first half, the first chunk of a very strong series also very strong. It's not a slow start. It gets you into it. It's showing you what's setting up, and I think that's really, really important. So I give it a solid 7.5 to an 8 for this part.
I'll give it a 7 out of 7 deadly sins. Yeah, I think it's almost impossible to separate my mind from everything that I know is going to be happening later, Yeah. So
all that good nostalgia.
Yeah, so I think just looking at it felt like everything went so much faster than I thought, than I remembered it going, and part of me wanted a little bit more time taken with certain things. And at the same time, maybe that's rooted in the fact that I've read it before and seen it before, and I don't know. But
yeah,
it's great. The characters are fantastic, and they're going to go through so much development. And the story is going to get crazier, and there's going to be so many more characters to meet, and it's just fantastic. So yeah, I think at this point, it's a 7. It's a solid base to build an incredible story from. So
yeah, I just realized I forgot to give my score too. I would also go with a strong 7, with the caveat that number is only going to be getting higher.
Yeah. Oh, that was an accidental click, Dodger. Skype, so in our MangaPod chat, Dodger had posted the link to her Twitch page, and my autofill suggestions that Skype was giving me was smiley face, Twitch, what about it? And I scrolled over to look.
I was like, what a strange thing to say now at this point in the show.
I accidentally clicked it, and I was like, oh. What a bizarre thing. I have to ask, by the way, before we jump into what we're reading next week, have either of you watched the live action adaptation on Netflix?
No, but actually I've heard it's not that bad.
I have a mix. I have mixed feelings about it.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
I haven't checked it out.
So you guys will have to watch it. There's
Okay.
things that are for an anime adaptation pretty good. There are things that I'm like, why would you do that to this? Why would you put your why? Though the Bleach, I will say that the Bleach live action that came out was not horrible.
Huh.
It wasn't. as bad as it could have been. Because you go into watching an live action anime adaptation like with very low expectations always.
I mean, yeah, like,
and it wasn't terrible.
Especially with a story that the plot is so, detailed. I'm wondering, I mean, does that movie just go into like one side story type of thing, or does it actually try to condense all 27 volumes of this?
Bleach or Full Metal?
Full Metal.
No, Full Metal does a condense of like certain arc type thing, but it changes a lot of stuff that tries to make like three different three huge chunk arcs into very limited, and it uses characters that you're like, I don't want you to be here.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen any live action anime adaptations where they haven't just been like, okay, here's all of the characters, here's all of the story, this is gonna go here, and these characters are all one person now, and they're gonna go here, and like these people were brothers, but now they're in love, and like they just like change everything. It feels like.
Yeah. And like what stinks about it is like Full Metal is one that could be so easily transferred into a live action series.
Sure.
Like it needs to be a series, not just. And so something else they do with the live action movie, not the spoilers, is that the characters you think should be the focus are not the focus of the story. Let's just say that.
What?
You're like, wait a minute, hold on. So you guys let me know.
Great. Yeah, I'd love. Interesting.
Yes. Well, that wraps up our discussion of Fullmetal Alchemist chapters 1 through 16. I'm going to go in and read the description for the manga that we are reading next week, and everybody in chat gets to guess what it is.
Hell yeah.
Hello. What about it?
Hello.
Insecure 35-year-old Hideo Suzuki is forced to work as a mangaka's assistant when his own series fails due to low sales. As he struggles through a mundane life plagued by blank, he comes to realize that his relationship with his girlfriend isn't that great, suspecting that she may be cheating on him with her ex-boyfriend. After confronting her after the possible affair, however, Hideo feels bad about his inquisition and decides to visit her house to apologize. But the world as he knows it has been overturned. At first, not much seems to have changed, but he soon realizes that blank has become a living blank as the horrifying reality of what is taking place around him finally begins to sink in.
Oh, shit.
As I was reading this, I was like, Wendy Bunn got it. I am a hero.
I'm excited to read more of this.
We've already read some of it. We're going to be discussing volumes 4 through 8, chapters 47 through 98. As I was reading that, I was like, this is not what I remember from this series.
Oh yeah, it's just like a normal dude who makes manga, and he's gonna go hang out with his girlfriend. It's normal.
I honestly thought I was reading the wrong summary. So that is what we are reading next week. Once again, volumes 4 through 8, chapters 47 through 98.
Sick.
Let's go around and shout out our stuff super fast. Hey, I'm Erin. I'm Happily Erin. I have a YouTube channel. YouTube channel is youtube.com/Happily Erin. I haven't really uploaded anything. Previous MangaPods, I'm working on getting those posted there. But if you want any reviews, first impressions, anything, I have all the ones that I've done in the past. I've been working on a book, and so that's kind of been taking all my time up right now. But if you want to go check out the YouTube channel, I also have mental health awareness stuff on there. Otherwise, I'm much more active on Twitter, which is also Happily Erin. I'm Happily Erin all across everything. So come and talk to me if you want to. I like to talk about Voltron and manga and anime and things like that.
Hell yeah. Hi guys, I'm Dodger. You can find me at Dex Bonus on pretty much everything. I haven't put anything on my YouTube channel in a really, really long time, but I stream most days. So if you would like to come and hang out while I stream, that would be amazing. I also just had a babu, and I keep saying I just had her. She's 5 months old now. But
I just had Kaylee, okay?
yeah, you just had Kaylee.
So I feel you.
So yeah, sometimes stuff gets shifted around and changed because babies are very changeable. But yeah, if you would like to come hang out with me, follow me on social, whatever, hear my dumb jokes, that would be great.
Dumb jokes are always great.
Thank you. I agree.
Yeah, so I'm Jack. I have an anime YouTube channel called UnderTheScope. You can also find me on Twitter at JackUTS. I try to publish videos about like twice a month, but last few months has been a little slower on that because I've been working on a big documentary sort of thing on the making of Violet Evergarden, which came out earlier this year. And I'm thinking that that's going to go live this week. So if that interests you at all, you can check out my YouTube channel, UnderTheScope.
Awesome.
Nice.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, next time we talk FMA, we'll holla at ya.
Yeah,
for
Awesome.
sure. Yes. And if you
Always.
guys would like any more MangaPod, we do have a subreddit, reddit.com/r/MangaPod. The schedule for the rest of the year is currently posted there, as well as our recommendation thread. So
we
if
need
you
to.
guys have
Sorry, we need to pin the correct schedule to the top of the Reddit. I keep forgetting to do that.
yeah, I need to ask Luke. I keep
How to do it?
because I don't know.
I don't know how to do it either.
I tried. So I've gone and been like, all right, it's going to be a button right here. Where is that? I don't understand.
One day.
The schedule is there. Probably in December, it'll be pinned at the top. It'll be fine. No, the schedule is there, as well as a recommendation thread. So if there's a manga that you want us to check out that we may not have, also Webtoon or manhwa as well, then you can go ahead and leave a comment about that. If it's already there, go ahead and upvote it. Otherwise, we will be here, same time, same place next week, 7:30 p.m. Pacific time, talking I Am Hero, volumes 4 through 8, chapters 1 through, no, just kidding, 47 through 98.
Hell yeah.
Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.